So just a quick update on the whole snc-lavalin thing, aka Justin Trudeau's political death spiral. So before I go into this, just very briefly, the Quebec company snc-lavalin got convicted of bribing Libyan officials like a decade ago, and they were going to be punished. And one of the punishments in the criminal prosecution was going to be that they weren't going to be able to do business with the federal government for a bunch of time, and that was a large portion of their business was with the federal government, and it theoretically would have done a lot of damage to the company, and thousands of people in Quebec would have lost their jobs if we believe what the prime minister says. So he attempted to pressure her to not charge them and to instead charge them with a civil penalty. I think it was they would have to pay a large amount of money and do an ethics reform and do some other things, but they wouldn't be barred from doing business with the government. So he got his cronies and he himself, and they went and just harassed her to try to get her to change her mind. And then this whole thing came out. Now, this is, you can take this to heart. This is something I've been saying for years, and this is something I've been saying now. There are two ways to deal with a scandal. The first way is the Trump way, where whenever somebody accuses you something, you go out and go, that guy is a fucking liar, he's an asshole, he's trying to screw me, and you just vehemently deny it and you attack the other person. In the words of the Young Turks, you go out and you hit them in the mouth. The other way you deal with a scandal is you just come out and you go, look, I screwed up. I made a mistake, I'm sorry. And then you just try to explain yourself and go, look, I'll take the L on this one. It was poor judgment on my part, and then just move on. And I think both of those work. The thing that doesn't work is if you go on TV and cry and be a little bitch about it. That doesn't work. And it doesn't work if you do this like half apology, half sort of not apology. It's like passive aggressive bullshit like Trudeau's some sort of woman. Like it's so just unbearable. I don't know. I did a video about his whole erosion of trust speech, where his approach was like at that point in time, oh, it wasn't, it was just a misunderstanding. She thought I was trying to pressure her. I thought I wasn't trying to pressure her. It all came down to an erosion of trust. So a bunch of people close to him have resigned. A couple people have left the party or been kicked out of the party. I think it's like 4 or 5 now people have left the Liberal Party over it. So, and this is kind of getting back to what I was saying earlier about ways you deal with a scandal. So when this thing first broke, Jody Wilson-Raybould wasn't allowed to talk about it because of client-attorney privilege. And people started yelling at Justin Trudeau to waive his right to that and to let her speak freely. The thing is, this would have been a good time for one of two things, like I said. A, what Trudeau could have done is just say, no, screw you, I'm not waiving it, and then kicked her out of the party or something like that, or just rode out the storm and just not let anything come out about it. Or that was the time to kind of come clean and apologize and say, yeah, I screwed up, guys. But he didn't do either of those things. He let her go out and testify and basically make him look like a massive doofus. And his reaction to it was that like lame erosion of trust speech. And he's just been flailing around. And he keeps like taking like passive aggressive catty remarks at Andrew Scheer, at Jody Wilson-Raybould. So it came out last week that she had tape recorded a bunch of the phone calls. Not with the prime minister, but she had recordings of a lot of stuff other people said. And during all the testimony that had come out basically proved her side of the story was right. Like she had quoted them exactly, and all the times people said they couldn't recall things, they had said the things. So she was 100% right, regardless of which side you're on. So Justin Trudeau kicked her out of the Liberal Party out of that, and they're not going to support her re-election. Now, here's the thing. People are criticizing Trudeau over this, and we'll get into the whole Indigenous angle in a second, but personally, he probably should have kicked her out a long time ago. I mean, let's be honest. The whole thing was just going to be a political shit show no matter what. He should have just kicked her out at the start and not had client attorney privilege, because the longer she was in his caucus, because keep in mind, every day she was there in the party. Can you imagine how awkward that is? Can you imagine, like, if you have somebody who's like actively telling the public like you're like a criminal, and they come into all your meetings like that? That's really really bad. So he kicked her out. He kicked Phil Potts out, or I forget if he kicked her out or she left. Some other some other Liberal MP somewhere in Ontario defected. So it's just been a stream of just this crap happening. And so Andrew Scheer said the very, very incendiary remark that Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony is concrete evidence that proves Justin Trudeau led a campaign to politically interfere with snc-lavalin's criminal prosecution. So that is apparently incendiary, even though that's just basically a restatement of what happened and what came out during the testimony. So Justin Trudeau, being the fucking passive aggressive little girl he is, came out and threatened Andrew Scheer with a libel lawsuit. Okay, come on. I mean, like, I don't know exactly how law works. I'm not a lawyer. But I think in libel lawsuits, isn't truth a defense? And Scheer could make a pretty good case that, look, I was just stating an opinion that's based on observable fact. Maybe you can't say like with 100% certainty that Trudeau led a campaign or whatever you want to call it, but I really don't think any judge in the world is gonna like uphold that. And it just makes him look desperate and petty and like the man-child he is. And this is just Justin Trudeau, and people are finally seeing what this man is made out of. This man is a massive piece of shit. And I've hated Trudeau for political reasons for a long time and personal reasons. And the longer this thing goes on, the more I despise him as a human being. So aside from politics, because we can get into that, there's lots of reasons that I think he's a horrible person. But one of the things he does is whenever somebody dies or is like terminally ill, he will go there. Be it like the Quebec mosque shooting I think he went to. There was some random family of immigrants that burned to death in Nova Scotia. There was a member of the Tragically Hip who had terminal cancer. He will go there and he will make sure to cry on camera. And it makes me want to vomit whenever I see it. Because you have this asshole who just inserts himself into random people's grief. Like the family is like grieving because a bunch of people died. And then this asshole shows up with his like schmarmy smile and then fake cries on TV and just completely ruins the event. Like it's such a douchey thing to do. And once again, it's so lame and petty. Like he can't even have like a Trump scandal where he has like the Secret Service like running in porn stars, or like, I don't know, like being a secret agent of like the KGB. Like that's like a cool scandal. That's like a cool misdemeanor to do. This is just so fucking lame. And that's basically all this dude does. So if he were to sue Andrew Scheer, holy shit, he would also probably have to testify then. Like, it's just, it just shows how bad his judgment is. Because like I said, if he had to come out at the start of this and taken the loss and said, okay, look guys, I screwed up. You can spin it. You can say, look, I was very, very enthusiastic in my desire to protect Canadian jobs, and I made a mistake, and I probably shouldn't have done that. Or I was a bit zealous, and maybe I gave the... You can make some shit up. And if he had done that, it probably would have died. And they're like, he's trying to kill it, but not really. Like, they shut down the committee. So there's a committee that was investigating this, and he shut it down. And they issued a statement. We know everything, guys. We know everything. The whole thing it's resolved. We don't need to look into this anymore. And then someone's like, maybe we should have an ethics probe and like investigate and see what the prime minister actually did. And they shut that down too. And I bet you any amount of money they're going to pass a bill to get this company off the hook. Now, the company itself is saying they never asked Justin Trudeau to do this, but who knows? Once again, if he had have just come out and said, yeah, I did interfere. I interfered because I love Canadian jobs. And this bitch was not going to let me protect them. So, probably to get to the end of this, the biggest and most beautiful irony of this is the man who is the biggest, like, cuck ever. He's the biggest masochistic, I'm sorry for being white, I'm sorry for being a male, I'm sorry I reproduced dude who's ever lived. He is so insufferable and sanctimonious. It's funny because when he went to see the Pope, he lectured the Pope on Catholicism. And it was the only time in my life I felt bad for Pope Francis. Because you know how much I dislike that dude, but no one deserves to have Justin Trudeau lecture you. And he's made himself the most progressive leader ever. He withdrew funding from all summer job funding from all institutions that wouldn't sign a waiver saying we support abortion 100%. He kicked out any liberal member, any member of the Liberal Party who had any questions about abortion. But he's a devout Catholic, guys. He's a devout Catholic. His faith is a big part of his life. That's why he acts the way he does. So the optics of this is he is a white, allegedly heterosexual, wealthy male who is demoting and kicking out an indigenous woman from British Columbia. And this is the dude who is like the head of Me Too. Justin Trudeau came out against Gamergate. That's what a tool this guy is. He came out against Gamergate. And like you had this and it's just and the thing is, even let's pretend that Jody Wilson-Raybould was super corrupt and she had done something like unconscionable. By Justin Trudeau's logic, that wouldn't matter because all that matters is like the power structure and intersectionality, and she's an Aboriginal woman, and like that kind of thing. So he's screwed because basically people are calling him on it. And now that he's in this hole, he's starting to like have to try to do what you or I would do if we were in this situation and be like, look, no, that wasn't the case. This is what happened. But he's fucked because he built a career on saying you have to believe these people, that the reality doesn't matter. All that matters is the racial component of it. And he's screwed now. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And I am smuggling all the way to the next election. Anyways, everybody, that was an update. I'll talk to you.